Laura, we talk a lot on this podcast and behind the scenes when the mic's not on about peak performance, people leadership to get peak performance in business. And we believe that it is one of the backbones of smart business growth and a really successful business. And so it was a no-brainer for us to talk to you because you are, in our world, you're the breath guru. I don't know. I just made that up in the moment. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how I see you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you again for joining us today. And I'd love to kick off the conversation by picking your brain and getting your thoughts, really how does breathing, which is such a fundamental thing that we do, how does breathing affect our ability to perform in our job, in our roles?
Well, let's start with the fact that if we or you are not breathing well, then it's going to be very hard to be present. It's going to be very hard to be aware of what you're feeling, what you're thinking, the quality of your thoughts, the quality of your communication, the quality of the decisions that you're making. When you are either over breathing or not breathing at all, then your brain is actually not getting all that blood flow, all that oxygen, the nutrients, all that it's needed for physically being able to lead, being able to be present, being able to run a business, being able to, do so many different things. So breathing is key for everything. But if we're talking about leadership and performance, it's such an important part of it. We need our brain to work well to be able to be present, to make decisions, basically make better decisions. Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed when we were working together, Laura, is the picking up on, how sometimes we can just take those really short breaths and it's that, thinking or breathing, the way that we're breathing. And when you just talk about breathing, perhaps coming back to what do you mean when you talk? Because everyone's going like, well, I breathe all day. What are you talking about? Like, of course I'm present because I'm breathing. But when you are in your world for more than, 5 minutes and you get to hear what you have to say and experience how you train people to breathe, what I notice in myself previously, but also, in day-to-day situations where you're under pressure or you're about to go into meetings and you're feeling nervous and all this kind of stuff. It's sort of like really shallow breathing or, gasping for breath almost. So let's start on a mutual understanding definition around what do you call breathing?
Fantastic. Great question and great start, because definitely we all breathe. I think the record for not breathing is around 40 minutes by a free diver.
Wow.
Yeah. That's huge. That's massive. But we all breathe. We have to breathe. And it's the quality of the breath that changes the quality of our life, of our experience, right? And so when we talk about breathing right now, we're talking about functional breathing. We're talking about good breathing, breathing that actually supports our well-being, supports our brain, supports our body. And so nowadays, we could say that 90% of the population breathes dysfunctionally, so we have become overbreathers, for example, breathing, as you were saying, shallow, like breathing shallow means that we're taking a lot more air than we need, or breathing through the mouth as well, and we are losing a lot of CO2, which is carbon dioxide, and a very important gas when it comes to oxygenation of the body. And so right now we're talking about learning to breathe functionally, learning to breathe well, learning to use the diaphragm, that very important muscle involved in respiration, learning to breathe through the nose again. The nose was made for breathing. And it's by learning, and you both have experienced that by learning just a few simple things and retraining your breath, you feel different, you think differently, you act differently. So this is what we mean. This is what we're talking about. Learning to breathe well, learning to breathe how nature actually intended.
It's so fascinating to me that breath is it's an unconscious thing that we're doing to survive, to be alive, to be here, and yet we can breathe well, or we can, that functional breathing, and the fact that over 90% of people are breathing dysfunctional breathing. That's crazy, right? I mean, how did this become, and this might be a rhetorical question, but how did this become the norm in society? The fact that we're not breathing well. Do you actually know the answer to that? That is an unfair question. If not, I mean, that's just a big question, but like, how the heck did we get here as humans? And it's probably the stress, the social expectations. Do you know how we got here?
Well, I actually wouldn't be able to say, well, everything started in this moment.
Yeah.
You know, but what we do know is that our, you know, our habits have changed throughout the years. You know, we went from being beings that were in nature. We were attuned
Yes.
to the cycles, the rhythm, like the breath is a cycle, right?
Mm.
Inhale, exhale. Inhale is to live and exhale is to die, you know, day and night, you know, all these cycles that were natural, all the circadian rhythm, all of this. But as we got more, let's say, industrialized, then we started losing that connection to nature. We started losing connection with our own body. This is why, for example, and Vanessa, you experienced the exercise, like you had the experience of breath awareness, you know, practicing breath awareness. And breath awareness is literally just sitting, watching your breath. And it's such a simple thing, yet we don't do it. In our day to day, we just do not observe our breath. We just take it for granted. It's something that is there. It's like beating. We don't need to think about it, right?
And also we're too busy. I mean, that's got to play a part in this because, you know, particularly our listeners, busy business owners, busy leaders, busy parents, busy people, the B word. So it almost, I think that it would feel, and it's certainly at times I've felt like this, and it's a practice that I'm working on changing, but that it's a waste of time. Oh, I'm going to sit there and observe my breath. What a waste of time. You know, it's that creating space to do nothing. Well, observing our breath is a similar thing, and yet there's so many benefits. Like I love what you said at the beginning around being more present, but also the quality of our thinking, the quality of our decisions that we're making. So I want our listeners to actually think about, imagine if you could improve even just by 5%, even 1%, the quality of the decisions that you're making, perhaps the feeling of certainty about the decisions you're making, being 1% more present with your family or with your team. What would that look like for you? What would that feel like for you? Because what Laura is saying here is that the breath is the bridge to be able to do that, is the shortest distance. I also love that you said the quality of our breath is the quality of our experiences, is the quality of our life. Or we're already breathing. So it can't be that hard to make it a little bit more functional.
Yeah.
Could it? Can we do this? Is it accessible?
You know, it's with us all the time, right? And so it is about it. I find it very interesting that in terms of leadership, you know, a leader that is not self-aware won't be able to lead.
So true.
And the I would say, and I would say that the first way to become self-aware is to become aware of how you're breathing. And when you become aware of how you're breathing, you become aware of whether you're stressed out or not, what's worrying you, what's in your to-do list, what's in your mind, you know, like your breath just shows you exactly where you are at. And the ripple effect. When you connect with your breath, when you sit for even 30 seconds to just breathe, you immediately can attune to somebody else's breath.
Oh.
You can see and feel and sense what other people are doing. So for a leader, that is key. Like imagine that I actually recently had a group, a small team coming to an experience with me. And it was just very interesting to see them first at the beginning, you know, like all different, you know, they were different, breathing differently. Some were obviously more tense, some were more relaxed. But their leader, their boss, he had come to see me a few times before. So he knew what he was doing. He knew how to regulate, how to breathe. And he actually changed the way people were breathing. You know, he was able to connect with them at a different level. And he brought them to me as an experience, more like as a bonding experience. But he was leading them. He had the lead. And And that was beautiful to see, you know?
I think
And
about, sorry, when you say that, I think there are so many ways that we can apply this. If you have a business that's going through a lot of change, so some of the larger businesses that we work with, there's a lot of change happening. There's a lot of stress around that. A lot of people changing jobs or maybe being made redundant, or the fear of the structure changes and what that could have. Imagine if you're bringing your team together and you just spent the first 5 minutes, even 10 minutes of a workshop or a meeting to all like just calm, to be fully present, to let go of some of that stress and pressure, to think differently, to have a different way of contributing to the discussion. That is so powerful that you'd be crazy not to take advantage of that. And what comes up for me then is there'll be some people out there going, well, that sounds great, but I don't know what to do because I haven't been around you, Laura. I haven't learnt it. So I wonder if now would be a great time for you to share with us something that if we did have a team and it was a stressful time, or even a one-on-one, we often coach clients and they to coach their team. We help them to do that. If you've got a person coming into a one-on-one with you and they're stressed and you're noticing your breathing and their breathing, what's a technique that is easy for anyone to be able to remember, to be able to do for themselves, to be able to say to someone else? Because I'm imagining that the first step is, let's just take a moment to notice our current breathing.
exactly.
And
Yes.
then, so what's the next step, Laura?
So before I share that, Vanessa, I actually would love to add something
Mm-hmm.
to this conversation, and is that things like meditation, for example, have become very popular, and because they are awesome, you know. But one thing that we are missing is that stress for many people, especially business owners, you know, leaders, CEOs, CFOs, all of these roles have so much pressure. You know, people are piling stress on top of stress, you know, and it's like, oh, there's some stress today and some tomorrow and some the day after, and there is no release of that tension.
Mm.
And so some people try to meditate and they can't. Because guess what? I mean, like the tension is so pent up, it's just there. You know, they try to go to yoga, they try to go for a run, they try to do all these things, and stress just keeps piling up, piling up. So one thing that is super key, and especially when it comes to running a business, is to be able to learn how to release that accumulated tension. And this is when things like hyperventilation or superventilation exercise would be great, because it works as a pattern interrupt of that. It's like a shaking of the body. So I just wanted to bring this to mind, because sometimes we talk about stress as being bad. And I mean, chronic stress is definitely not ideal, you know, but sometimes we do need a little bit of that push of stress to kick us out of the
Mm.
same, let's say, habit or routine of stressing a little bit today and a little bit more tomorrow, you know. So we need a little bit of extra stress to release that pressure cooker
Yeah.
and brings us down to, you know, to come back to homeostasis, to balance, to harmony. So bringing that into account, or taking that into account, sorry, then we could say that one exercise that I particularly love is super easy to do, super quick. It's called 20 connected breaths. And it's a short exercise of hyperventilation that anyone can do, but I do have to say, if someone is pregnant or someone has been suffered from epilepsy or seizures, then it's just better not to do this exercise. You know, there are other techniques that can be done. So should I share it with you now?
Yeah.
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 Okay, so this exercise, it's basically was created by a guy called Leonard Orr, who was the founder or the creator of rebirthing breathwork. And so this was a while ago. I learned this with a guy that I studied with. His name is Dan Brule. And so this exercise is, we count 20 times, 20 breaths. And you can do this either breathing through the nose or breathing through the mouth, or nose and mouth, whichever way it's easier for you. And you can do it at different rhythms. You can do it very fast or you can do it slow. The important thing is that it's uninterrupted. And on the 20th breath, you do it a little bit longer, like a double the size, let's say. Double the inhalation, double the exhalation. And I like to do at least 3 rounds. So it will take you like a minute to do this. So I'm going to demonstrate and see what happens. Yeah, would you like to?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
okay, let's do it. And if
Amazing.
you're watching or listening, stop
Yes.
driving your car, pull over somewhere safe, and let's all do it together. I love it. Yes.
I'm actually going to change my sound to so that you can hear me breathing actually. Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna start. We're gonna count. We're gonna breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, and we're gonna do it quite quick. So please look at my fingers.
Okay.
You know how many times I've been breathing. Okay, we're gonna start in 3, 2, 1. And again. Last one. And now just allow your breath to return to normal, breathing only through the nose. And simply let your breath guide you. Just let your breath take you to where you're meant to go. If you have the time, you can close your eyes in this moment and simply allow your energy to shift. You're going to be noticing that your energy has shifted. You feel sharper, perhaps lighter. So after we've done the hyperventilation or superventilation, then the parasympathetic or the relaxation response will kick in.
Mm. Mm.
Have created space. Energetically, we're talking about it's a moment of emptying the vessel, really, emptying the mind, creating space. So it's in that moment after doing that that you can bring in, for example, some thoughts of some positive or high frequency thoughts, like maybe some affirmations if you would like, or for example, your to-do list, what's next in the day. You can just, that is very, you can do this on a one-on-one, you can do it on your own, you can do it with a team.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
What was the experience like for you, Nick?
Yeah, I feel I'm actually curious to listen back to hear how my voice has changed because I feel really quite definitely like open. I feel like I can breathe better as well. I feel like I can breathe better in through my nose. My mind feels like it's opened and my body feels more grounded. So I definitely can see how doing this if I was overwhelmed, because that whole thought of, okay, I'm a bit overwhelmed, just take a moment, do this breathing, and then look at my list, what's next, or what's the most important thing, or even setting an intention for the day, or before maybe a meeting, who do I want to show up as for my team, or before a pitch. Like, you could go into the toilet, I guess, and do this. It might sound a bit weird if someone's, yeah, but so what? I mean, they don't know what's going on behind the cubicle. Who knows? But I think that's an important point around it. You can feel a bit silly at first if you've not done this, but it's kind of just getting over yourself, because I love that. Ness, what about for you? How do you feel now?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I've done this a few times with you, Laura, and it's it's lightheaded to start with, so like I find it quite challenging to breathe like that. And then you're sort of like, oh, I've missed a breath and now I've got to catch up. So I'm trying to get it right, which is crazy, right? But at the end of it, the lightheadedness, and then once we drop into just regular breathing, it just feels so much easier to breathe. I know that sounds crazy, people, but please do it.
Do it.
You'll know what I'm talking about. And then I really connect with what you said around that sort of, it's almost like this clarity, the cloud that's of everything that's going on and all the things you've got to be thinking about and planning for, and not just at work, but tonight I've got to, drop that off on the way home, and I've got to pick up dinner, and then I've got those people coming over on the weekend, we're in that hectic space. But after doing that, which took like, what, 1-2 minutes,
Yeah,
It's this lightness and just clarity of space. I don't even know whether I'm describing that well.
No,
It's
that
like,
I think you are, because that's
yeah,
exactly,
great.
and I think when you do it, you know exactly what you're talking about.
That's right. And so imagine if we brought that to, if you've got to go in and have a difficult conversation with
Yeah.
someone, and you just take that moment to go, because often, and we know as coaches that you can, to build rapport with someone, it's about like matching and then helping them come back into. So if you're matching and mirroring them, we've got to then lead them into the next space. Because if they're walking in tense, stressed, sort of doing that shallow breathing, how can we be the person that's feeling centered and
Yeah.
and open, and then willing to share with them this crazy, crazy simple thing to do that people might feel uncomfortable about. So I think there probably would be a little bit of setting up and asking permission before we move into, hey, I'm just going to get you to hyperventilate for a minute. And she's like, I think
Yes.
this is crazy.
I even wonder, just from I'm curious actually, Laura, to get your thoughts on this, because I even wonder calling it hyperventilating. So I know before I did some work with you in November, hyperventilation has been a part of my life since I was a kid. Actually, not since I did your breath workshop in November. Still, there's not been one time, like I have not had a panic attack or hyperventilated, and I'm sharing a little bit of personal stuff now, but that was a pretty normal part. It wasn't all the time, but it was a pretty normal part of my life. And it hasn't happened since. But if I would have walked into a coaching session and a coach said to me, or a leader said, we're going to do a hyperventilation breathing technique, no thanks, because my experience of hyperventilation was very bad. And it's like, I understand it now because of our workshop. You've taught me. And, I think about that whole stress. There is healthy stress and there's unhealthy stress. When we look at things like, Ness and I read the book about fasting, and I've played around with that. It's the same thing. It's not a bad thing for our body to go into a stress state, as long as it's a functional, healthy stress and it doesn't turn into chronic. But what's your thoughts? Like, how do we first, I would say, play around with yourself first as a leader. Do it yourself and experience it before you introduce it to anybody. But what's your thoughts around that, Laura? Because we want people to be open to it, and we don't want people to hyperventilate in a bad way. Is that a hyperventilation meditation? How do we set it up if we're going to do it with our team? Because I just would be like, see you later, I'm out of here. Not what I signed up for. What?
Well, actually, this exercise is called 20 connected breaths. And so
Okay.
it's more about connecting the breath, not allowing space, let's say, in between inhalation and exhalation. Funnily enough, we are, I would say, many of the population are constantly hyperventilating, naturally, over breathing more than they need to. Yeah. So let's start with that. So yeah, it's about reframing it. It's not about we're just gonna go into hyperventilation, but it could be framed more as this is a stress release exercise, because that's exactly what it does.
Yeah.
And even though it's maybe counterintuitive, even for people who suffer from anxiety or panic, this exercise is really good, because once again, what we are doing is just kind of like gently pushing or upping, let's say, a little bit of that stress response, but in a conscious way, so that then the relaxation response kicks in.
And I wonder as well, because when I hear you say that, it's discomfort. So the stress response, another way of saying that is discomfort. So when we did that 3 rounds, it certainly wasn't comfortable. It wasn't like the most enjoyable thing. My nose was burning a bit. I'm like, whoa, I haven't had this much fresh air up there. And, like, so actually what I'm hearing in that is the discomfort. It's because we went through the discomfort of those 3 rounds. And look, it's so quick, but then we were able to enjoy. It's like when we go to the gym, or when we're doing some kind of exercise and it's like, one more rep or whatever that might be, one more jump in dance class. Don't stop in the cardio. But then afterwards we feel so good. It's like we're on a high. So it's not, if anybody's a bit hesitant, it's not we're creating a stressful environment. Yes, we want to create some discomfort so people can grow. That's the same in coaching. We ask questions that might be a bit uncomfortable. We don't save them, because that's in the discomfort, that's where they grow.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would add is conscious discomfort.
Conscious discomfort. Oh, I love that. Yes. Do we have time for you to run through? And I know I'm not the timekeeper today. You're all lucky listeners. Sorry, Leah, producing our podcast, and thank you in advance. But do we have time? Because I love it so much to run through the perfect breath.
Yes, if you would like.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
You can't set that up and say no.
Okay, because what I'm going to say, I'm also going to share a super quick, and I promise it'll be quick, story here about the perfect breath saved my life. Okay, that might be a bit dramatic. I shut my finger in a door after the workshop I did with Laura in November. I shut my finger in a car door, and the driver, my sister, walked away, and it wasn't a beep beep door. So she walked away to pay for parking, and my finger was stuck in the car door. I did perfect breathing. And everybody, she eventually came back and set me free. Yay. But the response, the people around me said, Nikki, how were you so calm? How were you? I would have been so panicked if it was me. And the answer was, I had just learned 3 days earlier, thank goodness, the perfect breath. So if it can help me in that situation, it can help you, I think, in a variety of situations. So it's worth the time. What is the perfect breath?
Totally. Yeah. Well, the perfect breath is basically learning to breathe in a rate of 6 breaths per minute, which in this case, it would be 4 seconds or 4 counts in the inhalation and 6 counts in the exhalation, breathing through the nose. So once again, there are a few things, right? So if you cannot breathe through your nose, by all means, you can breathe through your mouth, but just make sure that you're breathing with pursed lips, like, because the idea is not to take in too much air. Now, let's just briefly touch on the fact that breathing through the nose is super important. So if the nose is not working well, it's important to look at that, and you can look at that with a breath coach or going to some, to a specialist, just making sure that the nose works well. So breathing in and out, and the beauty of the perfect breath is that it really brings you to that moment of coherence between your brain and your heart. It's like if you could imagine that there's like a line or a thread of connection of light or whatever you want to imagine that as between your brain and your heart. That's what it's doing. It's just bringing all of your systems, all of your being into a moment of harmony. And so that's why it works so well.
Yeah.
I love it. I've done this quite often, and it's actually much easier than what we just did, that 20 connected breaths, because it is something you can sort of just sit and do. It doesn't matter who's around you.
Yeah.
And it's like just in for 4, out for 6. And it's a beautiful thing. And that is such an amazing story, Nick, around what happened to you. And I think one of the things that really stands out for me, Laura, is that you shared, and Nikki's probably covered this in your bio, but you shared about how why you got into breathwork and why you got into this was because you had panic attacks and had a lot of anxiety. And I just know that, post-COVID particularly, there's so much awareness out there around the impact that that period of time has had on mental health, that there's legislation changes around how we look after our team members when it comes to mental health and the duty of care that we have for them. There's a lot of anxiety out there in the world. And to think that if we can help one of our team by teaching them a technique that they can then take home and in life in general be able to apply. Since we've done this work together, there's just so many circumstances that I've been able to help and see other people, like my daughter or, family friend. It's something that's shareable because it's so simple. It doesn't cost us money. It's, it can't really stuff it up. It's just breathing. But the impact, when we think about the impact that this has and the link between breathing and peak performance and not just peak performance for the business. Let's get real. It's about how people can overcome some of the really challenging moments in their world.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Like hearing you talk, it just gave me like goosebumps because that ripple effect, if we think about how our breath affects our nervous system, and if we think of our nervous system as this network of energy that not only is within us, but that it actually impacts the outside. We are impacting tons of people. And if you are leading a team or a company, you're impacting every single one of them just by changing your breath. And in the case of the perfect breath, all it takes is that you just pay attention for 5 minutes or even
Yep.
less to
Yeah.
how
I
many
love it.
breathing in and out. So shall we do it? Shall we?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, actually, I
Okay.
reckon we're going to, because we do have to wrap up, even though we could talk about this all day. But this, people, we normally say, throw to our guest and say, what's an actionable action someone can take in the next 24 hours? I'm going to jump straight in and say, this is your actionable action. Play along now. Or if you are in a situation where you can't, I don't even know what that would be, but
Yeah,
come back.
because you
can
literally
actually
can do
do it
this.
even if you're driving.
Even if you're driving. Even if you,
Amazing.
yeah, that's what I love about this.
Let's
Even if
go
you got
for
your fingers stuck in a car door, it's all good. Just do the perfect breath and you will live. You will survive.
Actually, before we practice it, Nikki, I wanted to ask you when that happened to you, when you had your fingers stuck there. Where was your attention?
On my breath. So I looked at my finger and my brain went, "What?" Lots of potential swear words that I can't say here. And then I went, come back to my perfect breath. And I focused on the 4, what is it? Yeah, 4 in, 6 out. And I even put my head down a little bit and just focused on my solar plexus and just focused on my breath, just focused on my breath. That was it. Yeah, it was actually incredible how it helped me. And it would have been a very different experience had I not have had that tool. And you know, that the finger in the door is a metaphor for so many instances in our life. We also talk about, event plus response or reaction is what determines the outcome. And the fact that you can do the perfect breath while you're talking to somebody, almost, drive, it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, then it can really impact that outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that self-responsibility, right? As well. Like just taking responsibility of the breath, of our breath. We are also taking responsibility of how we respond to
Yes.
the world.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And goodness knows there's many moments as leaders, as humans, where we also might get frustrated with people or annoyed.
Really?
So do the perfect, I know, shocking, isn't it? Do the perfect breath, Yeah.
Let's do it.
All righty.
Okay. So wherever you are, sitting or standing up or walking, I'm just going to invite you to simply first become very attuned to your breath, like become aware of your breath. Close your mouth and just simply breathe. Take a few normal breaths in and out through the nose. And as you breathe through your nose, I'm also going to invite you to pay attention to your rib cage, So make sure that your rib cage is moving, kind of like an accordion, opening and closing gently. You don't really need to change much. You're just paying attention right now. And we're going to do 2 minutes of the perfect breath. So we're going to meet when I guide you, and we're going to start breathing in through the nose and then out through the nose. We're going to meet in 3, 2, 1. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 3, 4. Out, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 4. Out, 5, 6. Breathing in, 4. Out, 5, 6. Breathing in, out, 5, 6. Breathing in, out, Last one, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Release this rhythm of breathing. Just breathing in and out through your nose. Just pay attention. What do you notice? That's the most important bit now. What can you notice? Did you notice a difference?
Yes.
Totally.
Yes, definitely. I think that those two breathing techniques go quite well back to back as well, even, you know, that's sort of almost if you've got the time and the opportunity to do the first, because the first one really feels like it clears your nasal passage. For me, it did anyway.
Yes.
But again, like I was doing that some with my eyes open, looking out at nature. Ness, you had your eyes closed. Like it's just so versatile.
Yep.
And I think the other thing, just as a final reminder, if you find it a bit challenging at first, it's a bit uncomfortable, that's great. Like that's feedback. And I know I certainly did and still do sometimes. So I want to, you know, the more I practice, the better we get at this.
Yeah.
So don't be put off if it's a little bit uncomfortable at first. Like we say with so many other things in life, if it's a bit uncomfortable, that's probably feedback that it's exactly what you need right now. And what a gift you can give yourself and then therefore give to others.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. It's always such a great way to just recenter, become grounded again. My word for the year is grounded. So this breathing, all the things you've taught us has been able to help achieve that. I believe this is an amazing place to finish on. And it's just such a great takeaway for our listeners and viewers. But people will want to find out more about you, no doubt, because we've experienced a couple of workshops that you've delivered over a longer period of time, and it's been quite incredible to have that experience. And I know you do public workshops and you do private clients as well. So please, where can people friendly stalk you, Laura?
Well, people can find me on my website, theloveapproachproject.com.
Yeah.
Or Instagram at the Love Approach Project. Same with Facebook, LinkedIn. They can find me as Laura Gutierrez. Or Laura.
Yeah.
We'll put links in the show notes.
Absolutely. Amazing.
And I have a podcast as well. So it's
Great.
the Love Approach Project, and it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well.
Beautiful. Well, we will make sure all of that is in the show notes, because please, people, do yourself a favor and get in this woman's world. She's amazing.
Yes.
And I trust this has been a little bit different for our podcast listeners today. So I trust that you've found it really beneficial. And if you've played along, I know that you'll just be walking a little bit taller and a little bit calmer. So thank you so much for sharing your gift with us.
Yeah.
And till next time, we'll say goodbye for now.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. Thanks,
Bye.
Laura. See you, everybody.
Bye.
See you.